age. And we are here to talk about authentic marketing in a digital age. It's a really, we have an amazing panel of experts here to talk about marketing. There's so much depth of experience here. I am excited for all of you to get to meet all of these women and to hear the great nuggets that they're all bringing to the table. So as you log on here, drop into the chat where you're joining from, who you are, how you serve your ideal clients, so that we can get to know you a little bit and see who is in the room. We like to see who's here. So definitely jump into the chat there and start using the chat as a way to just be connected with all of the women here in the room. It's just such a great way for all of us to get to know one another and to create connections with one another. And that's the beauty of it. So I'm Cami Gellner. It's my pleasure to host this awesome group that we have today of inspiring minds. And I'm a business coach, and I help women raise up their voice, their visibility, and grow their businesses with more time prosperity and wealth prosperity. And it's one of the things that I think right now is that we're in this changing paradigm of business. And I think women are leading the way. I think women's wisdom is the medicine our earth needs. And I think that we are on this pathway to doing marketing in a different way, not only doing business in a different way, but doing marketing in a different way. I'm on a mission to raise up the voices and the visibility and businesses of 1 million women around the world. That's been my mission for many years. I'm the host of Extraordinary Women Radio, the podcast. I am also the host and founder of Extraordinary Women Ignite Conference, which we are going to hit our 10-year of Ignite this year on October 24th through 26th in Colorado. It's an amazing conference of coming together to raise up voices and visibility and grow businesses. And I also have a community called Extraordinary Women Connect. It's a Facebook community that is all about lifting women up as we're growing. So it's great to see so many wonderful people. Hello to everyone. I'm not going to go through the list because I really want to use the time today to dive into marketing so that you guys are really walking away from this. But lovely to see all of you joining in from all around the world. It's fantastic. So a little bit about me. I have been a marketer for over 3 decades. I have worked on multi-million-dollar brands. I've had 8-figure marketing budgets that I've managed over the years. And now I work with women entrepreneurs. And one of the things that, I come from a really deep background of marketing, but I love to break the rules of marketing and throw out the ways that are very traditional ways of marketing. And I know you're going to hear that from all of us here on this circle, because we all share that same passion. We believe that marketing is changing. And I think marketing is changing even more so in the last few years. I think that people have just really come to a different place. So, this is what we're going to be talking about today, is how do we show up authentically? How do we really tap into stories? How do we create deeper connections in our marketing? And, just really how do we learn to speak our clients' love language? So that's where we're going to be going today. And if this sounds of interest to you, just type into the chat more clients. If you're looking for more clients in your business, this is a good place to get some really great tips and ideas from this circle of wisdom. So let me tell you a little bit about our amazing speakers that we have and the panelists that we have here in the room today. So we've got Patty Farmer. She is an award-winning marketing and media strategist. She's a business coach and consultant, an international speaker, a podcast host, a magazine publisher, and a 7-figure event producer based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we've got 2 Texans here and 2 Coloradoans in here. So you guys are going to get a little bit of Colorado and Texas going on. And
having barbecue?
Yeah, we could totally do barbecue, right? Because I think we do them both well in both states, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Patty serves and supports women service-based entrepreneurs, small business owners, coaches, and speakers to maximize revenue and design their desired lifestyle. Welcome, Patty. Thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Next, we have Kate Payne. She is a seasoned personal branding expert with over 3 decades of PR and marketing experience. specializes in crafting compelling narratives and optimizing LinkedIn profiles. As CEO of Standing Out Online, she empowers clients to own their digital presence and attract their ideal audience in a saturated online world. And she's going to teach you guys how to really, how do we get seen and heard here, right? I think this is some of the most important things that we can be doing in this time of so much noise. And then we have Miss Kimberly Spencer. She is a master mindset and communications coach. She's a best-selling author, a TEDx speaker, and the founder of crownyourself.com. I love that name. And the CEO of Communication Queens. She's helping visionary leaders transform their limiting stories, build their empires, stand out fearlessly, and create a business and life that rules. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have all three of you. So
finally
yeah,
here.
Yeah, we're here. I know we've been planning this for a while, and it's really fun to, just think about what we want to be talking about, what we want to be bringing to it. And I think I've had all of you on my podcast, haven't I?
I have not yet been on your podcast.
Well, Kimberly, then we need to get you there.
I'd love to be on your podcast. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh gosh,
Thanks for the invite.
I have some work to do there. I need to get you all on the podcast.
Marketing just happened and worked.
I know.
Exactly. Because we're connecting.
Networking.
We're networking. And this is so I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite ways to really dive into marketing these days is in collaboration, because there's so much expertise that is all around us. And I think this is one of our gifts as women, is that we're amazing collaborators, and we want to really be, we want our voices to work together. And I think that's, we can throw out the competition, that's one of the rules I like to break in marketing, is it's like, let's throw out the competition.
Yep.
Because there isn't competition. We are all unique. We're all doing something very different. And so I love collaborative marketing. It's my favorite way to really show up and, just be in community with others.
Mhm.
So this is one of the things I see happening a lot. And as we dive in today, I want you all to get out your pens and your paper, because you're going to be getting so much wisdom from this group. And if you hear something as we're going through this, type in the word golden nugget. If you hear a quote that you want to remember, type that quote back into the chat. But let's keep the chat going, because this is a way that you guys can all really connect and get to know one another. I'll share other ways that you guys can connect it on the tail end of all of this. But for now, use the chat box. Use that, because it's a great way for people to get to know, and you get to be seen from that perspective, right? It's like your voice starts to show up in the chat box. So that's awesome. So the very first question that we're gonna cover, and Patty, I'm going to throw this one to you just to kick off, is, in this digital age, what is the single most important strategy that you've implemented to attract more clients into your business? And how has marketing transformed over the past 2 years? What's really different? So kind of multiple phases to this, but just what's really worked for you? What's changed for you? And what's different in the last few years?
I really love this question. I love that it's segmented into 3 parts, because I think that's really important. So I'm going to say the single most important strategy that I have used is really working for me is creating a distribution channel, right? I think that's really what it's about. How do you create a distribution channel? Because I also believe that the number one strategy is collaboration. And if you build a distribution channel, you're now able to leverage that. And so you have to have the right assets to be able to do that. So I would say, what are the assets? If you don't have all of them, build them. So for example, for me, it's like what you said in my introduction. Like, I'm a podcast host. I have a magazine. I do live events. I do virtual live events. I'm building a virtual live event studio here in Dallas. That's a way that I will be able to do that. My magazine has 230,000 subscribers. So I want to have the assets so that I can use those in my distribution channel to serve and support others, and to have the assets when I'm collaborating, right? I want to make it an easy yes. So when I invite people to collaborate, that they're able to say, oh yes, like I'm going to lean in and I'm going to say yes. So I think that is what is really important, is to really work on those assets.
And those assets can be repurposed, right?
Over and over and over again in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I think how things have transformed is really, we're doing so many more live virtual events right now. I think that is really important. That's kind of why I'm building this studio. I think also email has really changed now too, right? You know, as we're seeing things on social, you know, look at all the changes just this week we've had on social. It's really important to own your real estate, and email really is that. Not only that, but it's almost a warmer market, because to get on your email, whether they've opted in or however they got there, it's certainly warmer than, say, cold social, right? You know, so it's a warmer market. I think that is important. Really switching from audio to video. Video is definitely the name of the game now, right? You know, so it is something that I have really switched over to doing way more video than I'm doing. And I think that what has changed, and really is kind of more like evolved in a way, is mobile and voice activated, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's not just doing video and being mobile optimized, is that people use voice activated devices now. And I think that when people are thinking about their messaging and their content, they're not realizing that the days of people just typing into Google like are really almost non-existent. We use our voice now. And are you making your messaging to use with voice? I think that is really what's involved. I think we have better tools now that we're able to use data and behaviors, right? Those two things together to analyze what's working and not working, so that we can better refine our marketing and know what the engagement is as we are building collaboration and leveraging the relationships that we build. Because, you know, building relationships is the name of the game. So live streaming, integrating AI, and making sure you're mobile and making sure voice activated is really important. I see somebody's asking an example of what using your voice really means in a voice activated. I'm talking about things like Alexa. I don't want her to talk, so I'm going to make sure I spell it instead of say it. But that is what we do. Think of all the questions that we ask sitting from your couch,
Right.
or asking her, or whatever version you use of her now. So it's very, very important to make sure that we're optimizing that, integrating AI, but not letting it replace you or replace your voice, but just integrating it. I think that is really important. And then just using the tools.
Excellent. So many good wisdom tips there. And I love that you really focused it in on the tools and the tips and things that you know, I hadn't thought about the voice activated side of things. So I think that's fantastic. So thank you for that, Patty. I really appreciate it. How about you, Kate? You want me to repeat the question, or are you good?
No, I'm good. I've got it in front of me. So,
Okay.
it's, you know, you said, what is the single most important strategy that you've implemented? So I'm going to say that there's two, because they're in a tie for first. And we talked about it even before we got on this. I mean, networking. So virtual networking, in-person networking, putting yourself out there. And really what I help people with is visibility. So the networking piece is so important to get the visibility. And there's, you know, it goes beyond. I love the term you used, Patty, when you said cold social. I've never thought of doing that. Like we always talk about warm leads, that warm this, but when you said cold social, that really resonated with me. So I just think that when I network, when I go to, like, whether it's a women's entrepreneur group or I go to a digital marketing conference or something, you're always meeting new people. And I go prepared to, like, if I'm going to be doing one of my virtual master classes or something like that, then I'm prepared to have like a QR code ready, so that if I network with somebody, I can talk about it if they're asked. I'm not going there to sell, because it's about relationship building first.
Right.
But if asked, or whatever the focus of that event is, then I'm prepared, you know, to be able to send them there. So that's pretty much how I get my clients, is from networking. And then now I've got a new sort of schedule this year. And I'm doing one masterclass for one of my programs, and I'm doing a small group virtual VIP day for my more exclusive sort of high fee program. And when you get really focused and intentional that way, then it's much easier to get those people to, you know, to be interested.
You simplified there, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. I mean, you know, I think when we all start out, and I'm in the 10th year of the iteration of my business right now, with standing out online. But the last 2 years, it's just been like totally fine tuning everything, especially since the pandemic, because that changed everything too. So as far as how my marketing has transformed over the past 2 years, because I've been in PR for so long and I sort of put PR to the side, I started to realize one of the ways we need to be unique so that we have really interesting social and not formulaic social like everybody else is we need to really step into our expertise and be visible. We have to do this for ourselves. This is not being showy or braggy. It is showing people your credential, your authority, your influence, because that's the part that builds a relationship or starts a relationship, nurtures a relationship, and then may lead to a transaction. But you got to build the trust first, or as Betsy Clark, Cami, she says, instead of
Yes.
know, like, and trust, let's call it know, like, and care.
Mm.
And I think that's really important, is to make that connection. So since I've been focusing on my own visibility, obviously on top of what I do for my clients, it's been a game changer. And you all know, Kimberly and Patty, you're in this world. Media breeds media. And in this day and age, aren't we fortunate? Because back before, like way back when I was in broadcast back in the 90s and stuff, it was print, TV, and radio. And there were the major broadcasts or local affiliates, right? Now you can almost, people who are doing what we're doing, we can actually create our own like personal network. We can have our own YouTube channel. We can have a magazine. We can have the things that we need to do. And so it's actually made the visibility piece be that much more open and acceptable.
Yes, it's so good.
So I don't know if did I do 4 minutes? I forgot to
I
start
think
my
I think
timer.
you're there. Yeah, I think you're good.
I had my
That's
timer
awesome.
up and I forgot to hit start.
Thank you, Kate. That's awesome. And I love that you really honed in on the trust and the authority, right? I mean, those two pieces, it's like one without the other doesn't serve us.
Right.
You have to have both sides of that.
In this day and age, people check you out online.
Yeah.
And it
Always.
goes beyond Yelp and Google. It's like people take your name and type it into Google or LinkedIn. And if you show up in a search and like LinkedIn profile, especially, and it's like subpar, you're missing an opportunity there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you gotta
Thank
kind
you
of think that way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, Miss Kimberly, it's your turn now.
Oh, I mean, I beat the guest podcasting drum because the biggest thing
Yeah.
you can do for marketing is borrowing other people's audiences. We are in an attention economy, and guest podcasting provides you with positioning because you have far less work to do because you're already positioned by proximity to the expertise of the podcast, who already has an audience that they've built for you. And so when you go in, like, for example, when you go on to a guest as a guest on a podcast, you're borrowing somebody else's audience. If you've ever held a production or done, like I did musical theater as a kid, and like the hardest part is getting the audience to the stage, like to the show. It's not the production of the podcast. Most people think, oh, they think podcasting, they think, oh, I'm going to start my own. It's easy to start your own. It's hard to get the audience there. So when you borrow somebody else's audience, you're bringing in much more attention. So for example, we have 2 podcasts, one for our coaching business, one for our podcast guesting agency. And we have over 150,000 downloads of our Crown Yourself podcast. It's a top 2% podcast. And yet, if I go on a podcast as a guest, within 7 days, if it's a top 5% podcast, it's getting about 1,000 downloads, within those 7 days. If I do 60 of those, I suddenly have a reach that's almost half the size of my podcast that I've had for 4 years. So the math on it is crazy. Plus the stats for guest podcasting, 66% of your audience is educated and affluent. So they have a college degree and they're making over $135,000 a year. They also are listening long. So compare that to social media, which is 2.1 seconds, versus, or YouTube, which is 2 to 3 minutes is a good retention rate. For podcasts, it's a 20-minute retention rate. So I beat the drum of guest podcasting because education is lead generation. Social media is traffic. We need traffic to then generate leads, but it's in the spaces like what Cammie's put together where, we're collectively pooling our audiences. Same with guest podcasting. You're pooling your audiences to then create something that is a lead generation opportunity because you are pollinating audiences. And when you can do that and you're doing that in an education medium, then you're educating people as to your products, your services, and your genius zone. And you get to stand out in a very authentic way and demonstrate and show who you are, what you do, and you're already positioned as the expert.
Yeah, I love it. So somebody asked, talk about the importance of picking the right established podcast.
Okay. So 90% of podcasts are not worth your time. 90% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. So if you want to find the right podcast, our vetting system for just getting into the top 10% of podcasts is we make sure that they have 30 to 50 episodes produced. They have at least 5 reviews, because we found that just a guesstimate, when you add a 0 to the ones place and basically you multiply the amount of reviews by 10, that's about how many downloads per episode they're getting. And then we make sure that they publish it every 90 days at the bare minimum. So even if they're a seasonal podcast, that their season, they have 4 seasons in a year, so they produce every season. That is how you can, at least at the bare minimum, vet. There are other 2 sites called Chartable and Listen Notes that you can also type in the podcast and you can see where is it ranking. So I know Patty also has a top 2% podcast. Those podcasts, like when you can type in and see, okay, it's ranking in the top 10%, those are people who are consistent, who are showing up. And the thing that you want to do with any form of marketing is you want to make sure your values as a business owner, which consistency is one of them for most business owners who've been in the game for a bit, that your values will also match the consistency of a podcast. So if a podcast has consistency and demonstrates consistency, then you will be a values match.
So good. I love it.
Can I add to that for
Yeah,
just
go
1
ahead.
second? Okay, good.
Sure.
So I have to tell you, Kimberly and I are so right on the same page. And I didn't even mention that because I knew she was going to talk about it. I was like, nope, I'm going to let her talk about that because I knew she was. But I really think that when you're thinking about podcast guesting, it's important to be on the right podcast with the right audience at the right time with the right assets, right? So it's really important that you have the right assets when you're doing it. But I think something that when people are podcast guesting that is often missed, and I know Kimberly will agree with me, is that a lot of times when people go on podcasts and they're pitching to them, they're literally thinking about getting in front of their audience, which that's phenomenal, right? That is phenomenal. But I feel like the thing that people miss a lot is that it is probably the best opportunity to build a relationship with the host.
100%.
Right. Building a relationship with the host of those podcasts, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. And so it's not just, so when you have the best assets, right, and you show up and you do all those things, you make a really good, that helps you to lean into the host too. And I think that is really important too. So I just wanted to mention that because a lot of times people just worry about getting on the right podcast and the audience and they kind of forget the host.
Yeah.
Yes,
So important, Patty.
So
That's
true.
gold. That is gold.
I think
because then
a
they'll
big
invite you back.
they'll invite you back. They'll talk about you. So
Right.
then you get your name mentioned multiple times. Like I have one guest who's a dear friend of mine who came on my podcast 4 years ago. We then built a friend from a mentorship relationship to a friendship relationship. I've mentioned her like 30 times on my podcast because it was such an extraordinary interview.
Yeah.
So the way I think about podcast guesting, to play off of Patty's, is like dating. Like most people think of a podcast interview like a one-night stand versus building an actual long-term business relationship.
Yeah.
And so if you can think about, instead of what can you get from the pleasure of being on somebody else's podcast versus what can you build together, that's how we've had clients go on to get, referrals, form JV partnerships, and get clients even before the podcast interview gets distributed because you're building a relationship.
Yeah, it's such a great way to build relationships. And the other piece that you didn't mention here, because I'm a big fan of podcast guesting as well, it's been an important part of my mix, is that podcasts last. They have a long tail to them, right? They show up for a long time, and so that marketing continues for you, and because people go back and listen to former episodes. I'm on, I don't even know what number of episodes right now, probably 350, close to 7 years
Wow,
in.
good for you.
Yeah. And so it's like, I have people still listening to some of those early shows. And I was like, it amazes me, that long tail of podcasting. So love it.
And
Love it. Okay.
And one more thing, I'm just gonna click one
Okay.
more thing and it's gonna be very quick. So, because I know people are listening and they're thinking about how can I implement it? One of the great marketing strategies really is depending upon what you're guesting, a great way to serve the host, but also be really good for you is when you talk about certain topics, creating a playlist, like on Spotify, a playlist, and getting that link. And then you can put that link in. And when you're talking to somebody, just saying, oh, I put together a whole playlist on that whole topic. And then you can just literally send them that link. And there's a whole
That's a
playlist
great
just
idea.
on
Golden
that.
nugget.
Golden nugget right there. I love it.
That's awesome, Patty.
I also,
Totally love it.
you can take a podcast interview, and I'm, as a mom of 2 young kids, like I look at how can we leverage this multiple
Yeah.
different ways. And
Yeah.
so you have the one-on-one relationship, but you have the podcast interview bonus, and then you have the bonus that one conversation goes out to multiple people. And then goes out to their audience,
Yeah.
which if you vet through our system, it should be about 50 people or more. Like a top 5% podcast is about 1,000 downloads per episode. And that's a top 5%, not even top 1%. And then you have your marketing done for you for social media. You just splice and dice from the podcast, and you don't even have to go produce new social media content.
Yeah, we definitely do lots of that. And I'm just going to jump in here. Lauren, you asked that question. I'd say walk away from the $47. There's plenty of other ones out there. So
Correct.
I'm going to keep
Good
going here.
advice.
Yeah, there's
Good
tons
one.
of others. It depends, like with podcasts that are pay to play, it depends on what they're paying, what you're getting. I mean, I
Is
know
it the
some
right
that-
audience? You can go
it's
all
the right
kinds of ways.
audience. I know some
Yeah.
that put a heavy ad budget toward it, but
Mhm.
basically we say no to pay to play.
Yeah,
No
I
to
would
pay to
too.
play. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to just drop in a few tips here from my perspective, what's changed in my business. One of the things that I've gotten really focused in on is the relatability in the past 2 years. And I've gone much deeper into the customer journey, like really getting deep into knowing what my ideal clients want, what they're desiring, what are the conversations that they're in every single day that's in their heads that they're trying to break through. What are those false beliefs that they have, so like just going much deeper into my customer journey. And I think that's has done multiple things for me. It's enabled me to streamline my products. So I have let go of products that did not quite fit that journey where I really wanted to focus on. So I was able to really tune in and just be into that space. So that deep customer journey work can be really important. And I think what it really lends to is it's like it lends to the relatability, because people understand that you get where they're at. And if you start to bring your stories in alongside of, I understand you're going through this because I've been there, that really starts to open up the door to deeper relationships with your clients and with your prospects and the people that are in your community. So the more you can get into that, and I think that the other side of that is it's not only are you getting more of your ideal soul clients coming into the mix, what you get is you get longer lifetime value of clients, because you're so in tune to what's that next thing that they're going to be needing. So I think that's one of the biggest shifts and changes that I've really made in my business the last few years. And I think it's really important in this day and age, because there is so much noise. You need people going, oh my gosh, she gets me. I want what, you want, that you really want to be speaking what I call their love language.
Mhm.
So that's one of the
Yeah.
things. Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Oh, no, I just wanted to add to that because I love that so much. I think one of the things that is really important is where your customers are at in the customer journey. We need to talk to them at all areas, but not in the same post, so to speak, right? So here's somebody who's just becoming aware of that problem. They're not quite figuring out what they're going
Right,
to do
the problem
versus
aware.
somebody, right? So versus somebody who's like, okay, I'm interested, right? What do I want to do? And then somebody else who may be saying, oh yes, now I'm ready. I want to hire somebody, but are you the person? You can't get on social and in one post talk to every single one of them.
Exactly.
You have to do it. And the same in email, right? You do want to address them all, just not at the same time. So I love that you're saying that, because I think it's really, really important.
And I
Cool.
think to play off on the relatability, I think one of the problems I see with most people marketing is they try to make the diagnosis the relatability piece versus the relatability of the symptoms. So if you think about like when you go to a doctor, you're saying, oh, my tummy aches and I have this thing. And the doctor is already thinking like, okay, well, it's obviously like X, Y, and Z diagnosis. And so most people market and talk about the XYZ diagnosis of here's, the problem that you have, when really when I shifted my languaging to talking about the symptoms of like, hey, I feel your pain, like going on podcasts and you're not seeing any results from it. Like you're spinning your wheels. Like I have been there, when you can speak to the language of the symptoms that they're experiencing,
Yeah.
that enhances the relatability versus just talking about what the diagnosis is in a way.
Yeah, I like that. I totally like that. It's so good. Okay, so I want to keep going because we have I know we've got more that we want to dive into here. And one of the things is that I've been seeing stats around. I mean, our digital world has just so much noise around, right? We are being hit with so many messages on any given day. And in fact, I've heard it's somewhere between, we're getting hit between 6,000 to 10,000 ads per day, between all the different noise coming at us. And, so this question of how do we stand out, right? What are the ways that we're going to stand out amongst all the noise that's there? And to me, it kind of builds on this, what we were just talking about, the relatability, but it just starts to tap into the relationship. So because we are creating connections with people, we're not just looking at people through a numbers lens, but we're really looking at, let's get to know the people in who are coming into our world. And one of the things that I've been wanting to really, put my focus on these last few years is deeper relationships. So even people coming into social media that I'm getting to connect with and know, I want to know who they are. I want to go deeper in that relationship with them, right? And so how do we build what I call a know, love, and trust? Because it's the love piece, right? It's like, I want the people in my community I want to love on them. I want them to love what I'm bringing to them. So I pour a lot of love into my community. And I think people are really hungry for connections.
Absolutely.
And I think, coming out of a pandemic, we were really hungry for that, real live in-person connections. That continues to be an important part of my business. That's why my Ignite conference is an important part of it, because it's people coming together and lifting each other up. Kate and I were talking about, we're both part of eWomen. Kimberly and Patty and I are all part of the Dames. Just like we have these communities that that we want to be in connection with. And so I think it's really important to create a system because we do meet so many people. I mean, we are always meeting new people. And, so look for ways, find a system to keep the stuff that's all the conversations you have. We do ours in Trello. I mean, we have a Trello board where we keep the conversations. So I can go back and say, oh, I had this conversation with this person. I mean, it's different than a CRM from the perspective of CRM keeps a lot of emails and works for, all of that. But it's so many of our people that we're making connections with that you don't really want them in your mailing list until they've actually opted in, but you don't want to lose track of the conversations. And so Trello has been a really good way for us to look at it, to be able to say what conversations we've had and be able to see visually which conversations are really live and active. So this is something that we've done in our business that's worked really well to really keep those connections alive. Kimberly, what is a simple tactic that our listeners can do in their business to really upgrade their client attraction?
I mean, we use Trello too, and I'm like, I love Trello as a system. And so if you start leveraging podcast guesting, like have a system. We modeled ours after like traditional movie production, where you have like pre-production, post-production, distribution. So you know where you're at with that. But you also have like in Trello, you can have a checklist. And we've created templates for, send a thank you email after the podcast. Very simple like easy relationship things. But sometimes when you're in the day-to-day, you just need a little reminder. And so we've created very simple, like send a thank you, like offer a testimonial, post a review. So we have give them a review on LinkedIn. Like we have several steps of just how do you amplify the relationship? Like, it's my intention with any relationship to see, like, how can I be an amplifier of others? How can I be the cheerleader? I was a cheerleader in high school, no, in middle school. And so like, that's a big foundation of like who I am. And I love cheering on people. And so I have the other piece that I use is I always frame, I do what we call karmic connections. And this has been a huge way of building my business. And I have a KPI of hitting 3 a day. And I make karmic connections where I just say, hey, I've had this conversation with this person and I've had this conversation and they both said they kind of want something of similar needs and they both could fit. I'm going to make an introduction and just see what happens. And I always set the intention at the end of every email and I have it templated and I have whatever comes of these introductions. I always set the intention that is for the highest and best good for all involved. And so it is. And then I send it out into the ether and into the universe and I make that connection.
That's
And
so good.
when you can do that, it builds up great karma, but B, it also enhances and amplifies relationships.
Yeah.
And so if that's a KPI that you can manage, even if it's just 1 a day, like just being able to do 1, that can be transformative because then you become the go-giver, not the person who's
Yeah,
trying to get
exactly.
things from everybody.
So good. It's brilliant. I've been a connector of, many of you probably have received a message from me at one point saying I'm connecting one great woman to another great woman. Right. But I love that you actually have a goal to do that. And I love that you call it karmic connections. So
And
brilliant.
Cammie, yours is the thing that you do on Friday and like all your whole thing that you do, like that is like,
I know I have not been doing that recently, but I need to go back to doing
it
that.
is probably one of the greatest strategies that I have ever seen. I love it. I mean, I've actually been the recipient of it a few times. So I have to tell you,
So I should go back to doing it again. Follow Fridays is what I was doing. So it's like, saying these are the people I met with this week. So thanks for that, Patty. How about you, Kate? What simple tactic can our listeners do to upgrade their
Probably
client
no
attraction?
surprise to you that what I'm going to say, but again, LinkedIn is still a tool that a lot of people use, but a lot of people don't make it a primary tool.
Mhm.
And so it really is important for you to show some love to your personal profile. A lot of us in this room we are our own brands, our personal brands. Like we are the face of our business, like just like Kimberly and Patty and Cammie. And if people hear your name or hear about you, they're going to check you out. And LinkedIn may show up before even your own website. And whenever anybody Googles me, my LinkedIn profile shows up on Google before my actual website. It's just above it, actually. So you never know. So show some love, but it's not just filling out a LinkedIn profile. I really encourage you to think about, related to what the other lady said, is to understand what your story nugget is and make sure you incorporate that, because that does build the know and the love and the care piece, so that people can make that connection. And then once you have this great profile, don't just like put content out that is just generic content on LinkedIn. One of the ways, especially now, and the algorithm has changed recently again, is to go comment on other people's stuff. Obviously put your own stuff out there, but make a concerted effort. Put it in your calendar, even if it's for 5 minutes. Go and check other people's posts, check your notifications, and go and make comments. The algorithm sees that. They see you as an engaged participant on the platform, and they're going to serve up more of your content. And it's just a win-win. It's more than anything, it's a relationship nurturing tool, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I've become a really big fan of LinkedIn. It's really been my favorite social platform to go to.
A lot of people are leaving some of the others because they're just like, I don't really want to be on Facebook anymore, or my audience isn't really there. And the other thing is as LinkedIn has experienced tremendous growth this year.
Interesting.
They hit 1 billion users in December, January.
Okay.
And they've been growing by leaps and bounds since the pandemic. But they're predicting that CEOs are much more personally active on LinkedIn than they've ever been before. And I think they're really paying attention to that.
Cool. Love it. Thank you so much, Kate.
Yeah.
Okay, Patty, how about you?
Oh, so I think we're all going to talk about LinkedIn. So if they're listening, they should be getting this.
Well, there's opportunity there. That's why.
I have to tell you. So for LinkedIn, really, if you're not using the newsletters, the audio events, I think is super phenomenal. like really the audio events. But I have to tell you, the biggest strategy that I'm using right now is the collaborative articles, right?
Yes.
If you're, I write for Forbes. So because I write for Forbes, we have the opportunity there to collaborate on things too. But I think the collaborative articles on LinkedIn is super powerful. And not only that, but you rise up in the list by how many like really likes you get, not even comments. It's like
Right.
likes. I mean, like, it's not that hard to get people to like your stuff, right? If they don't even have to leave a comment. So that's a really important strategy. And then just to kind of expand on how I'm doing kind of what Kimberly's doing. And it kind of really was a surprise for me.
Can we back up real quick on that, Patty? Can you just say how, I mean, because I've done a few of those collaborative articles, but they just kind of randomly show up. How do you get more proactive with those?
So actually, the easiest way, I actually have a link, but I can't get it to you while I'm talking to you, but I'll give you the link to it that literally kind of breaks it down for you so that you can do it. And then there's like the alphabet across, you can just go to M for marketing or whatever, and then they're all there.
Oh, cool.
So there's a link, and then, and you could probably Google the link, but what I have found for me is that every time, we're all about collaboration, right? You can really tell that all of us, that's what we're about, is building relationships. But when I'm building relationships and I'm talking to somebody, I actually have a spreadsheet that I keep on my desktop, and whatever something that they say, some nuggets or like some type of thing, I put it in there. So here's the strategy that's similar to Kimberly's that I use, and it's super easy. It takes me about 5 minutes every day. So when I'm doing my reach outs to connect with people on LinkedIn, or they do them to me. So whichever one it is, what I love to be able to do is to basically, once you actually kind of figure out what's the synergy, what's the thing of why they connected with you, right? I always love to be able to say, well, you know what? And, now that we've connected, I've got to know a little bit about your business and what you're looking to do. Here's 5 other people I think that you might want to connect with. And then I actually literally tell them those 5 people, I give them their LinkedIn links and a little bit of a blurb about them that I have in my spreadsheet that I literally just have to copy and paste. Takes me like 2 minutes. But here's the funny thing that happened. I thought I was being of service doing that, which of course I am. But you want to know what the surprise back for that was? I can't even tell you how many people wrote back to me and said, oh my gosh, Patty, thank you so much. How do I get to be one of those 5 people that you're telling other people
I love
to
it.
connect to, right?
That's
And
brilliant.
so they're never the same 5 people. It's all about what's the right one for them. So my whole spreadsheet just has all kinds of people on there for whatever their thing is. And so every single person I connect to, I tell them 5 other people that they should connect to. That would be great connections for them as well. And it literally is copy and paste. So that's my strategy.
So good.
Can I
so
can I
good.
add quickly to that?
Please, Kate. Yes.
So the other thing you can do as far as the collaborative articles is pay attention to your notifications, because you'll get invited. But the key is, the reason you get invited to do it is because you have intentionally put industry keywords in your personal profile. So it's really important to have them in your headline. It's important to sprinkle them throughout. So I don't even have to go and look. I get a notification saying, because you talk about personal branding, we would like you to weigh in on this article.
Okay.
So,
excellent. Thank you for that, Kate. This is so good. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it and take all kinds of notes, because this is really, really good. Okay. We had some people submit questions in, and we have just a few minutes for questions. So we won't get to all of them. What I will do is I'll go out to the Extraordinary Women Connect Facebook group and actually respond to some more of these questions that we had come through the door. But here's one. We've got one popping in here too. Let me start with this first one, and let's do like 30-second responses on this. Sarah submitted a question saying, how are you utilizing the rapidly evolving landscape of AI?
ooh.
I mean, for us, for our podcasting, we took our podcast production from 20 hours to 2. We leverage Podcastle, we leverage Pod Squeeze. Pod Squeeze basically produces everything for our podcast. It's kind of like Descript. It does the same thing. You can also make sure it matches your voice. I think, one of the things that I do with AI is I want to make sure it matches my voice. I think if you use the word delve, I'm like, or that it creates a tapestry.
Or
it's
beacon.
not just this, but it's that.
Right? So leverage AI to give it the prompts. Like, think of it like the guy in Guardians of the Galaxy who doesn't know how to take a joke, and like literally feed it transcript after transcript of podcast interviews of your posts and have it assess tonality, structure, style, metaphors that are used, and have it extract all of those. Pioneer, great one, or embark. Yeah, yep, those are two big words. So have it extract like what the style is, and then say, hey, if you were to create a blog post or a social media post in this style, leveraging all of the things that you just said is my style, structure, tonality, etc., then it starts to sound a little bit more like you. I like to use it for brainstorming, ideation, some crafting of posts. I like to use it to extract quotes as well. I have my team do that so that they go into a podcast that I've been on. I say extract like the top 5 best quotes from Kimberly Spencer, and then it'll extract those quotes. We'll turn those quotes into like social media posts.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. 30 seconds. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say
Yes.
on AI?
I'm going to say 2 things. Cast Magic, that'll pretty much upload anything in there, and it'll do blogs and clips and all of those things for you. So I think that using Cast Magic will be probably one of the best tools that I think that anybody can really do. And then I'm going to say this really, really fast. If anybody uses Kindle, if you're using Kindle to read, you also have an app on your desktop. Not that anybody wants to read a book on their desktop, but you can actually get it, copy and paste the whole book. You can't do it in ChatGPT. Go to Claude, put it in there, and then tell them this is what business I'm in. Tell me what strategies I should pull out of that book. You don't even have to read the book. It'll actually tell you every strategy you need to know based on you if you've seasoned it.
Cool. Love it. How about you, Kate? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I use the paid version of ChatGPT because I use when I'm doing my prompts, which I don't even call prompts. They're really more about my personas, and I go back to them because I'm building the voice. So I'm using it for ideas and inspiration. But one thing about AI, it doesn't have soul.
Yeah.
So I'm really pay attention to that. And when I'm using it with client work, I want to make sure that their voice is coming out. So, it's really important. You can get a lot of good ideas and inspiration. Just don't use it verbatim. I do like the paid version of ChatGPT just because I can do more, and I can just keep one going and keep going back to it 10 days later and go, hey, and now I'm going to do this with this person, and
Yeah.
what do you think? So,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's totally a game changer. We've even used it in our client meetings where we're capturing content like the VIP days and that sort of thing. That's worked really beautifully. So there's a lot more questions here, and what I will do is I'll promise to go over to the Extraordinary Women Connect Facebook group and just continue responding to some of these, and you guys can jump over there and respond to them as well, because I want to keep moving here. What I would like to do in our last 10 minutes here is just one more pearl of wisdom from each of you as it pertains to marketing your business in a digital age, and let people know where they can chat with or where they can connect with you as well.
Perfect.
Whoever would like to go. Kate, why don't you
I'll
go?
just jump in.
Okay, go
I
ahead,
will
Patty.
say that probably the thing that I would say is, if I had to narrow it down to a pearl of wisdom, would be build relationships, not databases. I think it's so tempting right now. Build relationships, not databases. Lead with contribution. Compensation will follow. And how they can connect with me is if they just go to pattyfarmer.com. Literally everything I do is there. So
Excellent. So good. So good. How about you, Kate?
It's relatability. That's coming back to the connection piece. We can't serve everybody. We've got to know who our right fit client is. And so those are the people that we want to build, those strong relationships with. But you've got to figure out how to be relatable. And that's where story comes in. And it's not a once upon a time, or I've been a CPA for 30 years. It's why do I walk the talk and be relatable. And so my website is standingoutonline.com, and you can email me at kate@standingoutonline.com.
Excellent.
Or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And Kimberly?
Guest on podcasts. That's the drum that I beat, because when you are and like what Kate said, you build, then like what Patty said, you build relationships. Like what Kate said, you get to stand out authentically, and you have a time and space to be able to fully share the full extent of your story versus like, here's a snippet, here's a little snippet. And get masterful with your communication. Understand the power of your language and how you're framing and how to shift someone, because all of marketing it's shifting someone from an undesired state into their desired identity. And if you learn how to bridge that gap, get masterful at that gap transformation, that's where then the transactions come from.
Yeah.
So, and all conversions conversions come from conversations with the correct people.
Correct.
So start having conversations with the correct people that you can then leverage. And for me, I determine a person who's the correct person as someone where there can be a win-win, mutually beneficial relationship, a vision of purpose. It could be a mentorship, it could be a colleague or a friend, or it could be a client relationship. And if you can look at how can you categorize those relationships that you're building into one of those three categories, and look at splitting your time amongst those three categories, it can be game changer.
And
And
where
to
they,
connect,
to connect with you. Go ahead.
to connect with me for our Crown Yourself coaching business, go to crownyourself.com. And to learn more about the power of guest podcasting or to join our podcast guesting parties, head on over to communicationqueens.com.
Excellent. So good. So my pearl of wisdom is it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. And so finding, don't do all the things. Find the things that you can get really good at and really build that into it. Look at it through the lens of what lights you up, because if you're doing marketing that doesn't light you up, it will land like that. And so really listen. I mean, you can apply all the strategies all day long, and it's important to have strategy in your business, but really do that soul work to understand how are you being called to market? How are you being called to serve? And what are the right strategies for you? Because then you can start to simplify, because there's, we get hit on any given day with, there are, here's the best way, you have to do this. And we get hit, probably 20 times a day with that. And so it's like really finding your grounding in that and listening to your grounding and moving through it from that perspective. So that's my pearl that I'd like to close with. And then I have got a complimentary soul client attraction webinar. It's Land Your Next 5 Clients Now. I'm going to be held on May 15th. And so you guys I will be taking you through some of my marketing teachings. It's very much about building your brand from the inside out. It's about really building your thought leadership message, but really getting into the customer journey and being able to speak your client's love language. That's some of the most important work that I think we can do. So I'll be teaching that. You can, Jessica just dropped that link in the chat box. And if you're really serious about taking your business and your marketing to that next level, I have opened up some prosperity audits this afternoon and tomorrow, where we really dive into your marketing and we can look and see what might need to be tweaked or anything that you want to adjust with that. So the Jessica will drop in the link for the prosperity audit or she just did. So that's there, and you guys can do that. With that, we still have about 7 minutes. We did that part of it fast. So I'm going to go back to one question, and this is a great vulnerable question. It's like, you guys have all been doing your business for a long time, and how long? And so Jessica wrote this question, Jessica M. She said, how long did it take for you to start seeing traction, and what form did that come in your business? So when you really just found that uplift in your business, just share a brief moment of that and what that timeline looked like for you. Because I think, we have people in all different phases of their businesses online here. Kate, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So before I had Standing Out Online, I had my own small PR business. It was my name, Kate Payne Associates. When I switched in 2014 to Standing Out Online, and I started really digging into the online side of things, and especially with LinkedIn as a platform, I started going to all these digital marketing conferences. I was going much higher than what I was. I was learning from people who knew more than me. I was constantly up leveling, and it was up leveling and making bold decisions and bold investments in things that I didn't think I'd ever do was the absolute game changer to really get that traction. We all stay here sometimes. We have to go higher. You hang out with the people that you admire.
Yeah. That gave me
Coaches
goosebumps.
hire coaches, right? Coaches
That's why you hire coaches. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. Patty, how about you?
I would say the thing that really changed the trajectory of my business was when I decided to become a speaker. So I think speaking really
Mhm.
Yeah.
was the thing for me. And I really was a perfect time too, because now we live in a world where, you know, it's about stages, and stages could be, you know, a virtual event, it could
Mhm.
be a live event, it could be a podcast, right? You know, so really getting comfortable and clear on speaking and how to share your value and what you offer, I think is really important. So really switching from, you know, really being able to know that sales is service and making sure that you always serve first. And I always like to say, and I'll just sort of say this, is I always like to think that when you're thinking about your business, think of it like an ATM machine. But if you're building relationships, you need to ask yourself, are you making more deposits or more withdrawals, right? You
Yeah,
know, because in the world we're in now, we really do need to be making more deposits first before we need to make that withdrawal, right? So
I love that.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Patty. And how about you, Kimberly?
It really shifted for me when I remembered my business strategy from when I was 19 years old and started my freelance Pilates business. That was my first business. And I remembered to build relationships, not databases, because what I was being taught in the coaching world back in 2015, 2016 was building databases. And I had to ditch that bro marketing BS, quite frankly, build relationships. And the other shift was when I realized that when I'm live, I thrive. And so it doesn't matter, like Patty said, what stage I'm on. When I'm live, I thrive. And that's why when we made the pivot from during COVID, because I was back then, to give you a backstory, I was stuck in Australia, so I couldn't do live events because of my visa and because of COVID. And we started switching to podcast interviews. Podcast interviews generated within 50 interviews $70,000 in new business revenue, and now it's over $250,000 in new business revenue, which is much harder to generate than recurring. So that's why, like, I beat the drum so hard for it, because when you can have those conversations that are leverageable, it creates a win-win and a ripple effect that can go so far beyond just that initial interview when you focus on the relationship, not the initial outcome that you think you're going to get just from the podcast interview.
Right.
So good.
That's great.
And Diana just asked where you're located. You're outside of Austin, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So Diana, she's just outside of Austin. Okay, well, this has been so much fun. I know there were so many wonderful golden nuggets here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening and joining in the conversation. It's so much good wisdom, and just thanks for playing with me. It's been my delight. So
Thanks for inviting
it's
me.
such a pleasure.
And
Okay.
thank
Fun
you,
to do this
Tammy,
with you
for
all.
inviting us.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
bet. You bet. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
We'll see you over on Extraordinary Women Connect, and we'll continue on some of those questions that happened. So
And make
talk
sure
you
to
later.
save the chat.
Oh yeah, save the chat. That's right. There's so
Just
much
did.
wisdom in the chat. So bye,
Bye now.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.